Integrative Inquiry, Week 9, Difficult Conversations.
To be on this journey with you. So let's get started. Just bringing a gentle attention to the seat in the chair, the feet on the floor, the back upright, alert yet relaxed. Noticing where the hands are placed. And bringing a gentle attention to softening the eyes, perhaps closing them or just looking down. And something that's not moving, so it's as if you're looking but not really seeing. And then inviting a gentle attention to rest on the breath sensation in the body. Maybe bringing a hand to the belly or the chest. Just noticing the movement of the breath in the body. You are here in this moment, in time, in this space. You intended to be here, and you arrived. I am grateful. And when you're ready, inviting your attention back into the room, just taking a moment to notice what you're noticing and honoring that. Just giving self some compassion. And then also encouraging you to check in with your buddy or with me. I'm happy to be of service to see how your practices are going. We're in a challenging time during the semester. What times aren't challenging, right? This is why we practice. This is why we're here. So just though inviting in again, just a reverence, a graciousness, a kindness, a reminder, and checking in with self and checking in with your buddy. Just seeing what you notice, So this week we're focusing on difficult conversations. We're expanding compassionate communication into really focusing on difficult conversations, because how many of you, yeah, you either have to have one of those, or you want to have one of those, or you don't want to have one of those, right? So either there's a difficult conversation that you've had, maybe it didn't go as well as you'd like. There's a difficult conversation you need to have. Maybe you want to have it, maybe you don't want to have it. And so what are some practices that we can garner so we can engage in compassion in difficult times? One of the pieces that we may have mentioned in class but didn't mention in the webinar is that being compassionate doesn't mean that we allow people to run over us. And being compassionate really is about honoring care for self and others as common humanity. That means that I wouldn't want to run over somebody else. I wouldn't want them to run over me. If I saw somebody run over somebody else, it wouldn't be okay. Therefore, it's not okay if it happens to me. So what we're doing in these times of conflict, in times of difficulty, in times of turmoil, in times of crisis, is we're really leveraging our mindfulness practice. We're noticing what we're noticing. And that sometimes is painful, yes? As many of the students that I've had the privilege of working with have said, you know, this mindfulness thing, this awareness thing, it's like, not that great sometimes. It's not that great. It's particularly not that great when I notice something about myself that's falling short of what I want to be or become. The whole point of this is cultivating awareness so that we remember the next moment is a new moment, a new opportunity for a new choice. We practice emotional regulation, we practice cognitive flexibility, and we self-regulate to get back in the work that's ours to do, the work that is uniquely ours to do, each one of us. And we leverage compassion in that. The whole idea is to elevate conscious choice. Difficult conversations are a part of this. In this book, Stone, Patton, and Heen, they're talking about 3 levels of conversations that happen, or 3 parts. You could look at it as 3 parts. There's the content, and we've been practicing this, right? The what I heard you say is. That's what you're actually hearing the person say. What I heard you say is. And then there are the feelings. That's what I heard you feel is. These are all part of every conversation. Then the third part that may not be so readily identifiable in the other person or within self is the identity piece. This is where we're leveraging mindfulness to leverage and bring up self-awareness. This is where the blind spots start to reveal themselves. So in every conversation, there's some identity piece. Yes, it could be racial identity, it could be sexual identity, it could be sexual orientation identity, it could be religious identity, it could be cultural identity, it could be a number of identities and the intersecting of those identities. It can also be the story that we want people to see about us when they see us, when they hear us. Like, I'm competent, I'm a good person, I'm worthy of love and respect, those kinds of things. And so in conversations, what's often happening is there's this identity piece, or what feels at stake for me, that's arising, that I want to get across in this conversation. I want you to see me as competent. I want you to see me as a good person. I want you to see me as worthy of your respect, whatever that is, right? And it doesn't have to be these 3 things. It could be a number of things, yeah? So what the invitation here is to do is, once we finish this video, is the invitation is to journal, is to take a difficult conversation, nothing like really traumatic, but just something where you had maybe a conflict, maybe you experienced a conflict and you're wondering whether you should talk to that person about it. And start journaling these 3 levels from your point of view. So this would be, for example, if it was me and you, I would say, okay, what happened? What did I experience? What was said? What was done? What did I see, right? How do I feel about that? I'd write that about. And I'd write what's at stake for me. Maybe I felt like devalued as a human being. Maybe I felt not acknowledged for my years of experience. Maybe I felt whatever it was, right? So I'm writing this down. Once I complete that, then I'm trying to get inside the head of the other person, right? The head and the body of the other person. I haven't had the conversation yet, so I don't know. This is basically what this is doing, is getting my story about the other party's point of view out on paper. Okay, so I'm getting my story about their point. So what do I think happened from their perspective? How do I think they felt? What might have been at stake for them? Maybe they wanted to be seen as competent. Maybe they wanted to be respected. Maybe they wanted to be seen for their accomplishments to this point. What's their perspective? So I'll journal about that, right? And then once I've journaled my perspective, the story I have about their perspective, I'm going to sit back and imagine a very wise, compassionate being walking up. I think of like our interim provost, Joe Johnson. I think of him. Like, what if he walked up and he saw this encounter, right? And it may be somebody else for you. Maybe Gandhi, maybe Madiba, maybe Martin Luther King Jr. Maybe, I don't know, could be whoever it is, your nana, your grandmother, your grandfather, a wise, objective person, somebody who just sees right through things. And they saw this encounter. What would they say about the content, the feelings, and the identities at stake for each party? So journal on that. And then after you journal that, you'll look at that information and you'll think, okay, what is my intention? So backing up, if there was a difficult conversation that took place, what was your intention during that conversation? What was your intention? Did you want problem solving to occur? Did you want to be seen as the person who had the right answer? Did you want to be seen as the person who needed a request fulfilled and it needed to be fulfilled now? What was your intention for that experience? What were you noticing? Did you just want to be left alone because you're exhausted? What was your intention? And then if you think about, if it was an experience, something happened to you, and you're wondering whether you want to have a difficult conversation, think about your intention for that conversation. Do you want to prove that other person wrong? Or do you want to actually move into an educational conversation where you can problem solve and discover some possibilities about how to avoid the situation in the future? Are you looking for restorative justice? What is your intention? Okay, so again, the steps are basically in any conversation, either one that's coming, one that we had that we want to reflect on. Sometimes the Espionrr practice just takes care of this for me. I've just later, after a difficult conflict or a difficult experience, I do the Espionrr. I do some recapitulation in the evening, and I'm like, oh, wow, I missed it. And I can jump right back on it with an apology or an owning of my experience or whatever it might be, and try to get back in dialogue. Other times it was a really icky blah, blah, and this process helps. So the 3 levels are, again, from my perspective and the other person's perspective, and then the 3rd story. We're going through the content, what I heard you say, what I heard you feel, what identities, mine and theirs, right? And then I'm going to check my intention. So sometimes when I have a conflict, I want to have a difficult conversation because I want to prove to them they're wrong and I'm right. That's not a good platform. Starting with that platform will likely create more difficulty. But if I want to start to really understand their perspective, then I'll start from that 3rd story. I'll explain what I understand is their story and what is my story, and then I'll invite in a problem solving, so how we can avoid this from happening in the future. What's really important to remember in all of this compassionate conversation, or any of our actions, conscious choice or not, is that impact does not always match intention. How many of you have had the best of intentions and it's resulted in the worst of impact? Yeah. How many of you wanted to be able to go in and clean up, but be seen for having a positive intention? Yeah. And how many of you were given that benefit of the doubt? Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? It really is icky when we want to go in and clean up, but our intention isn't honored. And so the invitation here for you as a compassionate leader, as a person practicing integrative inquiry, is when you're in the receiving end of the icky impact, is to actually decide whether or not what your intention is to approach that conflict. Check, see if it's problem solving. If it's not problem solving, then question again whether or not this is the right approach. Because this approach is designed for problem solving. If you are clear that the other person's intention was to harm you, then this is not a good practice to engage in. Engaging in a difficult conversation, because your intention will be to problem solve, their intention will be to cause more harm. This won't be constructive. Does that make sense? But if your intention, and all you really know is your intention, is to problem solve, then invite the other person in. If they've already made up a story about you that your intention was to harm them, then we need another process, okay? We need mediation. We need another process. But in all of this, seek to identify the identity issues for self, and perhaps your story about what the identity issues are for the other person, and then what that third objective person might be saying. Okay, and here's where it's really useful, where when we go to practice this in class, what I'm hoping is that we can leverage the wisdom in the room to support each other in particularly the third story piece. All right. This is a beautiful practice for identifying blind spots. I've had so many wonderful and hard aha moments, like, whoa, I really missed that. Like, I really missed that. That was the identity issue for the other person. And had I been more aware of that, I could have slowed down, backed up, done all sorts of things so that we could have been into problem solving and not have had a negative impact. Yeah. All right. The other piece, this is useful. This whole difficult conversations process is also useful when addressing feedback that you need to provide to either the people who report to you or the person you report to, right? So this managing up process. But there's also some real key pieces in providing feedback that we'll talk about in our time together. And in your learning management system is Brene Brown's Engaged Feedback Checklist from her books. I'm not sure which book it is. I really enjoy them all, but it's from one of them. It's in there. We're using it with permission. And so I'll ask you to read that so we can talk through that in our time together in class as well. Okay, so our practical takeaways are science and practice. Every conversation has 3 parts or 3 levels: content, what I heard you say is; emotions, what I heard you feel is; and the identity issues for self and the others. And approaching a difficult conversation with the intent to problem solve will result in positive outcomes, even if the other person doesn't come to the table. And likely, if their intention is not to problem solve, they won't take you up on a difficult conversation. I've invited several people at San Diego State to have a difficult conversation, and they didn't take me up on the invitation. And I explained to them what a difficult conversation entailed, that the intention was to problem solve. They actually gave me a beautiful gift by not taking me up, because that was an opportunity for me to say, their intention doesn't match mine. It's okay. We'll find another way to resolve this. All right. Or not resolve it. Check your intention before. This one requires a lot of digging, a lot of honesty with self. What do I, so many times I've gone, my intention is to problem solve. And I'm like, oh, no, it's not. I just want to be seen as right. I want to be right. I like to be right. So it's really been, again, really helpful, right, to pull that up into the self-awareness aspect as a leader and be aware of that with a lot of compassion. And remember, there's always a third story. There will always be someone who sees something different than you do. Remember, in this neuroscience practice, this evidence-based practice of integrative inquiry, every human being is having a unique experience of right here, right now, and it's true for them. Our challenge is, as diverse as we are, to move all of us in one direction to accomplish a particular project at a particular high level of quality in a particular time frame. And that's challenging when we're all having different experiences of right now, and it's true for that person. But holding that with reverence that, your truth is just as important as my truth. How do we have a dialogue to get us back on the same page to move us forward together? Pretty fun, huh? All right. So questions, any assistance, any comments, concerns, reach out. You know how to get a hold of me. The practice invitation, connect with your buddy and practice, or talk about this practice. You can even practice this practice with your buddy if you'd like to before class. And let's see, no, I don't have directions yet. I always put the directions off after the class. If you want the directions on how to walk this through with a buddy, let me know and I'll post them, okay? Otherwise, I usually post them after we have our in-class. Practice focused breathing daily. Practice it just like me, that common humanity, really anchoring and reverence for another human being who may be having a much different experience of you than of right now. practice compassionate communication, difficult conversations, your 2-minute journal assignment, and the weekly poem. All right. I look forward to seeing you in class. This will be fun. I know it sounds scary, but it'll be fun. Until then, you enjoy. Thank you.